The raising and maintenance of healthy nursery plants of uniform growth is most essential for the successful establishment of a clearing that is likely to yield high. In view of the very heavy expenditure incurred in the replanting program, it is essential to raise clearings that will yield at a very economical level to offset costs of inputs. Tea nursery management. The selection of the right type of shoots for the vegetative propagation of young tea plants is most critical. The first step in the establishment of a proper nursery to supply the right type of plants for either replanting or infilling is the establishment of a mother bush area of the appropriate clones suitably labeled. It is by the proper maintenance of these mother bushes by established practices that one could ensure the generation of the ideal shoots that will provide ideal cuttings.
Establishment of multiplication plots. Mother bushes should be planted in specifically identified multiplication plots with very good soil. The bushes should be spaced 3 feet by 4 feet, that is 0.9 by 1.2 meters for ease of cultural operations. These mother bushes should be fertilized regularly, not with the ordinary mature tea fertilizer mixtures, but with the young tea fertilizer mixture T200 throughout their productive period for the production of succulent shoots. Once transplanted into multiplication plots, the young tea plants intended to serve as mother bushes will receive the same rates of application of T200 given for any other young tea in new clearings for the first and second year at currently recommended rates. Nevertheless, unlike young tea in ordinary clearings, these mother bushes will continue to be on T200 during the third and fourth year onwards as specified in the chart and not on the T750 fertilizer mixture. Rates of application of the T200 fertilizer mixture. Third year. Apply 3 doses each of 2 ounces or 56 grams per plant. Fourth year onwards, apply 2 to 3 ounces or 56 to 84 grams per bush every 3 months. Following pruning of these bushes, they should be continued to be maintained on T200 fertilizer mixture and not on the usual mature tea fertilizer mixture. Generally speaking, fertilizer application should not be made within 2 to 3 months prior to or following pruning to avoid scorch of foliage. For mother bushes after the first prune, the fertilizer is best applied about 12 inches, that is 30 centimeters from the base of the plant in a circle and individually, as there are less number of plants per hectare and lightly dibbled in.
Pruning of mother bushes. Mother bushes should be pruned at a height of 18 inches, that is 45 centimeters in high country and 22 inches, that is 55 centimeters in low country to obtain vigorous shoots suitable to generate ideal cuttings. Following the pruning of mother bushes, the first harvest of shoots could be taken at 4 to 6 months after pruning depending on elevation. The first harvest generates approximately 12 good shoots. Best results are obtained when cuttings are taken from good shoots such as this, which have been harvested at the correct stage. From each shoot, 5 to 6 good cuttings can be obtained, thus generating about 60 to 70 cuttings from a single bush, which could be used to raise plants for a replanting program. Avoid taking cuttings from such mature regions. The bushes are then cut across at 6 inches, that is 15 centimeters above the pruning cut, and about another 8 shoots obtained in 3 to 4 months, yielding about 40 cuttings per bush. These cuttings could be used to raise plants as infills. Any further harvest will only give weak plants and is best avoided. Number of mother bushes needed per hectare. One mother bush generates approximately 60 cuttings from first harvest. Number of cuttings needed per hectare will be 15,000 cuttings, inclusive of an additional 20% to offset casualties. Therefore, minimum number of mother bushes needed to cater for 1 hectare would be 250. After the second harvest, rest the bushes for at least 12 months before next prune. Thus, for a continuous supply of cuttings annually, 2 blocks of each clone must be maintained.
Type of shoots. Select erect growing shoots and place them in a bucket of water. For propagation, avoid taking inclined shoots such as these, as they give inferior plants. The collected shoots should be wrapped in wet gunny bags or a sheet of polythene sprinkled with water and taken carefully to the nursery site. When transporting over long distances, the bases of the shoots should preferably be wrapped in wet cotton waste or other absorbent material and placed in perforated polythene bags. Care should be taken not to expose the shoots to the sun. Selection of nursery site is an important step in the setting up of a nursery. A relatively flat area close to a steady supply of water should be located and cleared of vegetation. The beds should be laid out in the north-south direction, and they should be 4 feet, that is 1.2 meters wide, and of a convenient length within the confines of the nursery site. The beds should be raised 4 to 6 inches, that is 10 to 15 centimeters from ground level to facilitate drainage, and leveled before arranging the soil-filled bags.
Nursery soil. The soil used for propagation should not be clayey, as this impedes drainage. A sandy soil is also not preferable, as retention of water is poor. The best soil is a loamy type of soil, ideal for propagation. Such soils could be cut from selected areas that was preferably under Mana or Gautamala grass for 2 or more years. The cut soil should be transported to the nursery site, heaped up and covered with grass or coir matting to protect from heat. Before use, it should be watered over the covering the previous day. The pH is more critical for nursery work. The preferable pH range is 4.5 to 5.5, with best results obtained near a pH of 5. The soil should be passed through a coarse sieve number 4 mesh to remove stones and gravel.
Size of nursery bags. The nursery bag should be 9 inches long and 6 inches broad, lay flat, that is 23 centimeters long and 15 centimeters broad, of 150 gauge polythene. When filled with soil, bags of this dimension will have a diameter of 4 inches or 10 centimeters. Both ends of the bag are open with a few holes punched on the sides to facilitate drainage. Filling polythene sleeves with soil should be done by gently ramming a small layer of lightly wet soil at the bottom. This is followed with handfuls of soil that is gently pressed and not rammed in too hard to impede root development, but filled uniformly without leaving any air pockets, and these bags are stacked on the beds in rows.
Fumigation of nursery soil. Fumigation of nursery soil is absolutely important in order to control plant parasitic nematodes. If not controlled properly, these nematodes can cause serious stunting and retard establishment of transplanted plants in the field. Please refer to a separate video cassette for details on soil fumigation.
Type of cuttings. Unsuitable shoots should not be used as shown here. The first two shoots on the left are too tender, while the shoots on the right are over mature. Cutting should be taken with a sharp knife in a shaded place. Each shoot must be examined, and the terminal end of the shoot, consisting of the bud and first 4 or 5 leaves, needs to be pinched off, since these are not good material for cuttings. The cut should be smooth and sloping upwards and as close as possible to the axillary bud, but care should be taken not to damage the axillary bud. While taking cuttings, the shoot should be rotated between the fingers in order to come to the correct position to cut the shoot again. After taking a cutting, any stump above the next nodal leaf should be cut and removed. The basal, more mature portion should be discarded. The cutting should be dropped into a container with water. The best planting material is a single node cutting consisting of a nodal leaf with an axillary bud and an internode of 1 to 1.5 inch, that is 2.5 to 4 centimeters in length, as depicted in the top center of the picture. A common fault seen in nurseries is the use of unsuitable cuttings, as seen in the bottom row of this picture. The first cutting on the left has an overgrown axillary shoot. The next cutting has a stump above the leaf node, which is undesirable. The third cutting has a long internode, while the cutting on the extreme right has too short an internode, making anchorage difficult. Cuttings that are damaged by insects such as these are unsuitable and best avoided.
Method of planting. Every effort must be made to provide shade to the newly planted cuttings without delay. Shade can be provided with open woven coir matting of 1/4 inch, that is 0.6 centimeters, mesh width, laid on a frame of iron or bamboo hoops and rods at a height of 3 feet, that is 90 centimeters above the bed. Poor quality matting, as shown here, should be avoided. Before planting, lightly wet and level the soil by tapping with the hand. The stem of the cutting is held between the thumb and the forefinger, and insert the cutting straight down up to the axil of the leaf and press the soil on either side of the cutting with the fingers. The leaves should point at an angle to the length of the bed to minimize overlapping. Only one cutting should be planted in a bag. Coir matting provides 15 to 25% light intensity, which is the light requirement in the early stages. Shade could also be provided with bracken fern inserted in clusters on the polythene sleeves. The stalks should be free of leaves up to 10 to 12 inches, that is 25 to 30 centimeters, and the shade provided by the canopy above. Care should be taken to insert the ferns uniformly over the beds without overshading or undershading. Whatever type of shade is used, water the cuttings at least twice a day depending on the prevailing weather. However, overwatering should be avoided, as too much of moisture in the bags would lead to overcallousing and poor rooting. Overmature cuttings should be avoided, as it leads to flowering and is also another cause for overcallousing. If cuttings are not inserted properly into nursery bags, they will remain loose, giving rise to weak plants.
Fertilizer application should commence with rooting, which is 8 to 12 weeks after planting of cuttings depending on elevation. Pull out a few cuttings at random to ensure that rooting has taken place. Even though T65 fertilizer is water soluble, there is the usual tendency of some of it to settle down without being in solution. Hence, it is advisable to grind the measured quantity, that is 1 ounce or 28 grams, into a powder before dissolving it in 1 gallon or 4.5 liters water in a bucket that is sufficient for 100 plants per fortnight. Pour the fertilizer solution with a watering can, ensuring that each bag gets its quota of fertilizer. Soon after each fertilizer application, wash the plants with clean water to prevent any scorch of foliage. The fertilizer dose is doubled from the time the plants are 5 to 6 months of age. Zinc sprays should be given at recommended levels. Prior to fertilizer application, remove any moss on the surface so that fertilizer will not overflow.
Restacking. As differences in growth rates of plants will be seen, the plants should be restacked into 2 or 3 height classes from the 4th to the 5th month after planting of cuttings, and adjusting their requirements of water and fertilizer.
Method of encouraging spreading of plants. Nursery plants should be trained early to branch out into a low spreading plant. The plants could be disbudded, which involves removal of terminal buds when they are 4 to 5 months of age. Another method practiced is that of thumbnailing or pinching, which involves the removal of the bud and the first 2 leaves with included stem, and is done when the plants are 6 to 7 months of age. These operations could be repeated on the developing shoots.
Hardening off. Before field planting, nursery plants should be hardened from the 5th to the 6th month by folding the sides of the fire matting for an hour in the morning and again in the evening. This exposure to light should be progressively increased. If fern is used as the shade, this must be gradually thinned out.
Pests and diseases. The tea tortrix and the yellow mite affect nursery plants during periods of dry weather. The tea tortrix could be controlled by spraying 1 fluid ounce Dipterex in 2 gallons water, that is 28 milliliters in 9 liters water. Yellow mites cause corky brown strips on underside of young leaves and are controlled with sulfur or morestan or tedian at recommended rates. Blister blight leaf disease is controlled by spraying a copper fungicide every 4 days at 4 ounces in 10 gallons water, that is 120 grams in 45 liters water, as the rains set in.
We are bound to end up with excellent plants in the nursery as shown here if all the recommended practices are implemented at the correct stages. When such plants are used in the clearing, the results would be a highly successful one.